Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. It's our non-Messianic conversation night. We'll be dealing with the uh, book of Micah and why it was taken out of the 1908 King James slave Bible. Okay, and for those that don't know, you can go to our YouTube channel, Prophets of Awakening, check out our videos. There's a lot of information given. In the videos, we connect dots for you and lead you into the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. Okay. With that being said, for those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. By that, we mean that we're dealing with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance. And the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses at Mount Sinai. Welcome to our shalom and welcome to our Prophets of Awakening and welcome to our non-Messianic conversation. Before we get into our non-Messianic conversation, we're going to do our moment of silence. We're going to do a Sabbath prayer, Psalms, some current events, a little need to know information. Then I'll open it up for some Q&A. And then we'll go into the discussion, which is the book of Micah and why it was taken out in the King James slave Bible. Okay. This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts and all that he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Okay. Oh Lord, we come before thee at this time that you have set us apart for the beginning of your Sabbath day, that you have given unto us for rest. We are thankful for the knowledge and the understanding that you have given us up to this point. And we seek thy face on this Shabbat, that you shower us with peace and enlightenment and a sense of togetherness. Oh Lord, we see thy hand in the affairs of the world, and we know and understand that what you have spoken in the past will surely come to pass. And turn not thy face from us, but hearken unto our plea. Hearken, O Lord, and do. Peace be unto you. Okay. Let me read the Psalms. Okay, I'm going to read Psalms 87. It's the glories of Zion. It's a psalm from the sons of Korah. His foundation is in the holy mountains. The Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwelling of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of thee, O city of God. Selah, I will make mention of Rahab and Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistine, Tyre, Ethiopia, of this man was born there. And of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born in her. And the highest himself shall establish her. The Lord shall count when he writeth of the people that this man was born there. Selah, as well as singers, as the players on the instruments shall be there. All my springs are in thee. So that was Psalms 87. That's the glories of Zion. And we kind of talked about that last night. It's kind of ironic, but it says in verse 2, the Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of thee, O city of God, Selah. So we kind of touched on that last night when we was reading out of Proverbs 31. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go to some current events. Anybody have any comments on that? They want to say something? Okay. We go to some current events. You had something?
No, sir.
Okay.
Israel is considering a preemptive war on Iran in an effort to deter Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Now, the CIA does not know for sure, based on this leak. So who's to say what the reality of the situation is? But I will say we do trust the source of this report. It was not the New York Times. It was not the Washington Post. The source of this report was Ken Klippenstein over at The Intercept. And the reporting is concerning to say the least, because should this happen, should the Prime Minister of Israel decide to do a strike on Iran, the United States government is already on the record in support of that effort. So let's give you the details. Before we get to the leak, we need to know about how the leak was obtained in the first place. I think that's an important part of the story. So the leaked document first came to our attention via a report from Ken Klippenstein in The Intercept. And it doesn't seem that there are many other publications writing about this, except the leak was first reported on in April by an Israeli news site called Ynet. Ynet reported that they obtained the document through Jack Teixeira's Discord leaks. So remember, Jack Teixeira was the young man who was the head of this small Discord group where he somehow had access to classified documents and was sharing those classified documents with other individuals within that Discord channel. Now, here's the document in question. There it is, and you can't read it, but I'll tell you exactly what it says in just a moment. So if you're wondering whether we can trust the leak, again, for one, Ken Klippenstein's reporting about it. Also, the document does contain specific military terms like FISA, meaning that it was dealt with by a special court that authorizes sensitive surveillance for the American intelligence community. There were some elements to this document that were questionable. For one, it refers to Benjamin Netanyahu as the president of Israel as opposed to the prime minister of Israel. That concerns me. I think it would be strange if the CIA didn't know that he's a prime minister, not a president. But nonetheless, here are some important excerpts from the document itself. On February 20th, Israel conducted a large-scale air exercise, probably to simulate a strike on Iran's nuclear program and possibly to demonstrate Jerusalem's resolve to act against Tehran. Earlier this month, the IAEA detected trace quantities of near weapons-grade uranium in one of Iran's enrichment facilities, approaching a declared Israeli red line. So let me just pause for a second and remind you all that there was a deal in place. It involved the United States, Iran, and multiple other European countries. And that Iran nuclear deal ensured that Iran was no longer, developing its, nuclear program, its enriched uranium. And, they never admitted that they were developing or using enriched uranium for nuclear weapons. However, the United States was able to negotiate under the Obama administration and ensure that they were not developing nuclear weapons. However, under the Trump administration, he comes in, he rips up the Iran nuclear deal, which paves the way for Iran to develop nuclear weapons because we didn't hold up our side of the deal. Let me continue. CIA, according to this leaked document, does not know Israel's near-term plans and intentions. Israel may wait to see U.S. and international reaction to the IAEA's findings regarding Iran's nuclear program and whether Iran's supreme leader will authorize uranium enrichment to weapons grade before deciding whether to take action. And finally, it says that Israeli president, again, he's the prime minister, but that's what the document says, Israeli President Netanyahu probably calculates Israel will need to strike Iran to deter its nuclear program and faces a declining military capability to set back Iran's enrichment program. So again, this leaked document, it's not confirmed enough for me, right? However, the response to this from the United States government is what concerns me. I want to hear what you have to say about this, Jake, and I'll tell you what I mean.
So look, the document's very important. The reason we keep saying that it's by Ken Klippenstein is because he has excellent sources and that have proven to be correct over and over again in the national security apparatus. So to me, the document is just a small piece of the puzzle because the other things that the administration has said publicly already confirm that we've given Israel the green light. And I need you to be clear about what we gave them the green light for. Go ahead and start a war in the Middle East. and we're going to back you up, and we're going to go fight that war for you. So let me give you things that are already public, so there's no dispute about this. Jake Sullivan, who's the National Security Advisor.
We have a video of him talking about that, so let's go to that video.
We are also engaging Iran diplomatically regarding its nuclear program, and we continue to believe that it was a tragic mistake to leave the deal with nothing at all to replace it. But we have made clear to Iran that it can never be permitted to obtain a nuclear weapon. As President Biden has repeatedly reaffirmed, he will take the actions that are necessary to stand by this statement, including by recognizing Israel's freedom of action.
Are you paying for things you don't need in your phone plan?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm paying for. That's always surprising.
Does that upset you?
Very much so.
Yes, it does.
Saying we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon is not big news. Okay, so that's what they often say. The question is how, right? The very last thing he said was absolutely critical. He said that includes giving Israel freedom of action. What that means is they can bomb Iran. And once they start that war, we are going to back them 100%. So they now have a giant flashing green light. And you saw with your own eyes there. Freedom of action. That's exactly what it means. You can ask any person who's involved in foreign policy, etc. We're saying go, okay? Now that's insane, but there's more. I want to go to graphic 5. This is our ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides. He says, as President Joe Biden has said, this is what he said earlier, we will not stand by and watch Iran get a nuclear weapon, number one. Number two, he said all the options are on the table. Number three, Israel can and should do whatever they need to deal with, and we've got their back. That is not unclear at all. That is a giant green light. Go ahead and start a war with Iran. We would love to engage in another disastrous war in the Middle East. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq, and its military is far more capable. And by the way, there's no evidence that they're developing nukes. None. And number 3, guys, not only is there no evidence that they're developing nukes, we can end their nuclear program tomorrow by getting back into the same exact deal that Obama signed.
Exactly.
So why wouldn't Biden do that? Here's an excellent clue. Graphic number 6. In 2009, after then Vice President Biden said, quote, Israel can determine for itself what they decide to do relative to Iran, i.e. freedom of action. Obama clarified that his administration was, quote, absolutely not giving Israel a green light to attack Iran. Now, I give you that because that's the contrast. So I got 1,000 issues with Obama too, but in this case, he said, we are not giving a green light. And then he made a deal that took away any nuclear capability that Iran had. Perfectly done, right? Biden, meanwhile, even back then, is itching for war. Remember, he voted for the Iraq war. He's basically been a warmonger his whole life, right? And so he's like, no, give him freedom of action, green light. And Obama has to reel him back in. And now that he's president, he's like, oh, fantastic. Let's give him a green light. And we can do another insane, lunatic war in the Middle East.
Yeah, and if you take a step back and you look at the political landscape overall, right, domestic policy is tied to foreign policy. If you take a look at the negotiations that are needlessly taking place among Democrats and Republicans in regard to the debt ceiling, notice how the Republican Party wants to freeze spending on everything, with the exception of defense. They want to increase spending on defense moving forward. Why do they want to do that? And so I think that they're eventually going to get what they want, because Democrats are pretending like, they're backing us into a corner. They're holding the debt ceiling hostage. You have some progressives saying, why are we negotiating with economic terrorists? Jamal Bowman, for instance, was quoted as saying that today, and I agree with him on that. But the important thing to remember is that corporate Democrats are pretending like they have to negotiate with Republicans on this. And in the end, they're going to give the Republican Party what they want. There will be a spending freeze when it comes to everything that benefits ordinary Americans here in the United States, with one exception, and that would be spending on defense. And it's concerning because, look, first of all, Biden ran on, can you believe what Trump did in pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal? I'm going to make sure that we get baback in. Of course, he didn't do that. He reneged on that promise. And seems to be some frustration that the endless sanctions against Iran have failed. They want regime change in Iran.
Yeah, when are they going to get it through their thick skulls? Unless they're complete and utter liars, which is not only possible but likely. But if they genuinely believe that, when has sanctions ever worked in a situation like this? It didn't work in Iraq. It didn't work in North Korea. It's when you have someone who's basically a dictator, and the Grand Ayatollah fits that bill in Iran. They don't have fair elections in Iran where anybody can run and anybody can win, anybody can have freedom of the press or speech, obviously, right? In a situation like that, sanctions never, ever work, and they're always an excuse for war. Oh, we tried sanctions. What are we supposed to do now? Invade them now? You know it doesn't work. But even more so in this case, you know that the deal that they made with Iran to get their all nuclear material out of Iran worked.
It worked. Yep.
It 100% worked, and it was a democratic deal. It was one of the things I gave Obama tremendous credit for. So why don't you just go back into the same exact deal? Remember, the guy who ended the deal was Trump boogeyman. So why is Biden doing the same exact thing as Trump? And so look, if you watch mainstream media, they'll tell you, no, Biden's an angel on everything and Trump's the devil on everything. But really, because look, I hate Trump and he's wrong on 997 things out of 1,000, right? But on this, by the way, we once violated their airspace, Iran's, while Trump was president. And we went in with a fighter jet and a drone. The Iranians could have shot down both and killed our pilot and probably taken the material that we had on the plane, including the intelligence that built that plane, okay? And they chose not to. They shot down the drone. The fact that they shot down the drone shows that they could have shot down the jet, right? So the Pentagon, which are filled to the rim with warmongers, were like, all right, great, let's bomb the middle of Iran, and it would only kill 150 civilians. And to Donald Trump's credit, he said, no, that's disproportionate. So we did not do an attack inside Iran.
Okay. Any comments on that?
Sir, I would like to say one thing about it is that, again, we are in a crazy who's the best of the both evils. You know, we got Biden doing the same thing like he's saying that Trump was doing, but we call Trump not good, even though he was doing things. And then here we are, another war might start up again.
Okay.
That's what I have a take on.
Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay, yeah. Well, we know that America's going down, so we're supposed to be expecting some war, a war to come up, to generate a war from somewhere, because that's the only way these bankers and America is going to try to get out of the hole that it does. They got to start a war. World War I and II, it's the same thing. That's where they make their money at. Selling armament to everybody. When we know Israel is the #1 arms dealer in the world. That's where all the weapons coming from. Production and design. They the one designing them. Okay. So with that being said, I was talking about this the other day. I want to shine light on it.
$1 million in migrant crisis funding, but it wasn't easy. A divided city council has approved $51 million in migrant crisis funding, but it wasn't easy.
We respectfully ask that this chamber respects the order and decorum of this body of government.
Public comment became heated as residents and aldermen disagreed on how taxpayer dollars should be used.
Casey Cronus is live at City Hall for us first at 4. Casey.
Anthony and Natalie, the full council approved that budget amendment 34-13. The funding will go toward migrant housing and other resources for asylum seekers that have been bused to Chicago from the Texas border. But that decision did not come without contentious debate.
I have a diverse population. And I hear those same people, black, white, Latino, everybody different races, saying, what about us?
In housing and real estate.
Residents and council members shared opinions which at times became heated over the decision to allot $51 million to migrants. Those against the funding are questioning how the city can suddenly come up with so much money for new visitors when local communities remain neglected and our own homeless population needs help. Since last August, more than 8,000 migrants have been dropped off in Chicago from the Texas border, with Mayor Johnson calling it a humanitarian crisis.
When we talk about asylum seekers and those families who have been here, how do we make sure that there's enough for everyone? Look, you know, we're moments away of digging in deeper with our budget and making sure that we pass a budget that speaks to the values of who we are as a city.
Now, this comes after Mayor Lightfoot declared a state of emergency because of the migrant crisis before she left office. This as shelters and respite sites for asylum seekers remain full. And right now, Mayor Brandon Johnson is speaking with members of the media. We'll have the latest from that briefing coming up at 5. Reporting live from City Hall, Casey Pronis, Fox 32, Chicago.
Okay, any comments on that? I talked about it the other day, but I was going to turn back to it. Anybody hear anything about that? Okay, so if you've been paying attention to it, most of those so-called councilmen or aldermen that's in Chicago is black, and they standing up against the local people, which are black, for these migrants that's coming in. So my thing is this, like I said, from the time you're born in this place to the time you get 18 years old, you indoctrinated. And then if you choose to, if you don't have proper countenance, right, thinking like a Hebrew, and you go on past those 18 years and get some more of their knowledge, that's what it turns you into. Right here, these clowns right here are sitting there going against their own people. There's some people that's coming out of nowhere. They dug up the money. They couldn't dug. They live in Chicago. They see the conditions of the people in Chicago. They wasn't alone enough to dig up some $51 million to help them, but now they feel the need to dig up the $51 million now for these people. And so my thing is this: where the hell was these people at when they was bringing us over on the boats? Did nobody come up with no $51 million, or did it come up? Did nobody rally together to cut that off? Then when we got over here, they beat the hell out of us and all that. Nobody came together. But now these clowns feel the need to stand up for these people. Okay, so to me, that's ass backwards. Okay. So I got a little need to know information right here.
All of these subscriptions.
This goes back to what I was saying about these Israelites. I mean, these Edomites and these Gentiles is not going to release us. Not going to be them that release us. And like I said, you can see it playing out. Let me get this straight.
And we're going to get into the articles that are here. But not only that, China has taken over other collaterals that Ghana put up on the loans that they got that they defaulted on. I was like, why do we do such ignorant things when it comes to business? Why?
So back to what I said about the 400 years and how it came about. They saying that they tied the 400 years to Genesis 15, but look how it's playing out. This dude right here, the president of Ghana, he was part of that bill. He's one of the players in that bill that said that 400 years was up, right? And so they jumped on. Everybody latched on to it, Israelites and everybody, and said it was prophetic. So look what's happening now.
How is Black folk the worst in when it comes to finances? Why don't we know how to budget? Why don't we know how to do contractual deals? Why don't we know how to make? Do you think America's so-called $41 trillion is affected by China coming in and seizing up its resources? No. See, America, they already laid out because of they know how to lay out contracts and stuff. What they do is they issue out bonds, the treasury bonds.
Bankers.
When you have debt that you're trying to get rid of, you have countries buy into bonds. But, I tell you, this is something that is very disturbing, and we're going to get into this. I didn't even know what's all on the table. You know what's so interesting is that when you talk about an economy, let me give you an example. Now, most of you all probably already know. When you go borrow money from somebody, I tell my kids is anytime somebody asks you for money to borrow, what they're telling you up front is they're broke. Because think about it. How will they, peace and blessings to all y'all that's coming in. How do they pay you back when they already in the hole? Because they got to pay their regular bills. So where are they going to muster extra to pay you back? The only way they can do that is go rob Peter to pay you. And that means that you got to go get another loan to pay you back and then turn around and have to pay them back. So now you got to pay them back by going to get a loan somewhere else and all that there. But here's the scary part. The scary part is this right here. And I'm going to get into this right here. If the country is relied upon, because their cocoa is up for grabs already. They gotta give the cocoa. Let's get into the letter real quick, because we're gonna get into it. I don't want to keep this too long. This is crazy. I'm like, who's your financial Ministry of Finances, and who are the people who? But this has been going on for the last 20 years, they said. I don't get it, y'all. Why are we this way? Why are we so ignorant when it comes to money? Look at everybody back there laughing at them. The laughing stopped. Everybody's laughing at Ghana now because Ghana is the first that's about to lose it now. They have to give it up. Why are we the ignorant ones when it comes to money? I know money is new to Ghanaians and Africans all around the globe. But even when I think about, Black folk in America, we don't even know how to handle money. All we know how to do is spend, borrow, steal, rob, borrow. This is what we do. Don't have a know-how to invest, how to budget, how to save. I said, I'm telling you, I'm like, thank goodness there are other countries out here who understands how to manage and budget. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going raw today because sometimes we need to ask them. Because I've watched lose our houses. Y'all gotta bear with the internet. It goes in and out. I've seen so much of us lose so much, and making sure y'all can't hear me, right? Okay. We lose all this because we're ignorant into finances and we do not know how to budget. One of the biggest issues I see in Africa, even with our people in America, we don't know how to maintain nothing. We don't know how to put money aside to keep what you done purchased to maintain it. This is why we have hoods. You see, people go buy these houses and they stretch themselves, but they ain't got no money when something breaks on it. They ain't got nothing to keep it power washed. Every 2-3 years, you see that the daggone mold starts to grow on it. The house needs repainting. The shutters start to fall off. The gutters begin to fall and bend. The roofs, the rooftops begin to have holes in it because we don't even know how to set money aside for future maintenance. This is the budget problem I find in Africa. Because these people who are wanting to be in government, but don't know how to even handle business. This is a god doggone shame. Let's get into this letter right here. This right here is from Yen. They laughing in China. Let me make sure that I can hear myself. This right here is from Yen. Okay, good. This right here is newspaper Yen. Listen to this right here. We're going to go down this right here and see the problems that Ghana is facing. A huge problem Ghana is facing. And I'm going to break it down to you because many of y'all probably don't know how these economies work. This is right here. China to take over Ghana's mineral revenue and electricity sales in default of 4 loans, says IMF. This is another article. This right here is by Modern Diplomacy. Defaulting on collateralized Chinese loans, Ghana will lose its state properties. Now let's get over to the article. A report by IMF on Ghana's external debt show that should Ghana fail to honor obligations under the loan agreement with China, it could lose revenue from its mineral resources and electricity sales. This was written 23 May. It's already happened, y'all. This was written 23 May. They already lost it. Details of Ghana's collateralized loans from China show that the Asian country.
Okay. Any comments on that? So China is about to, from what he's talking about, China already pretty much took control over Ghana.
Shalom.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I had a feeling that's what China was going to do, and I believe he's going to do the. They're going to do the same thing with the airstrip, the air ports that they put in for help to put in for Africa, and then all those little ports that they have everywhere else, the seaports. They're going to start calling in there for them to pay. And so they can own those things. I felt like that's what they was going to do, and they're doing it.
Right. Exactly. That's the objective. And like I said, they only just like they did with the transatlantic slave trade. They're gonna the Chinese ain't number front. They front using the Chinese to what Esau, it's the bankers. When you look at the way they're doing this, that's coming from the mind of a banker, an international banker, somebody that's been doing it for thousands of years, well trained in it. That's what that is.
So, sir, so China has no kind of defense, or why would they even bow to whoever's making them do it or showing? They have all the technology, and where they're getting their money from to front these countries and airports and taking care of all the things that they're doing if they're the puppet.
if you look at Hollywood, Denzel and Denzel and Samuel Jackson and all those guys. Look what's happening with them. Who controlling them? They making all kind of money, but there's only certain things they can do with it. They make the wrong move, gone. So it's the same people who just got control of the world, controlling these nations. Same way. The money is a small group of people that's controlling the world's economy and money. Man, it's not hard to figure out who that is.
Yes, sir. Okay, you enlightened me on that. I understand now. Thank you. That is something.
Right. Anybody else? So, like I said, that don't look like it's adding up to me for a scripture, because you came back and he was one of the major players in it. This guy from Ghana, the president, about the 400 years. But it ain't, look at it falling apart. It ain't how the Yahweh work. Yeah. So, with that being said, we're gonna open it up for some Q&A, questions and comments. Anybody got any comments or questions about anything that we talked about this week, or video you watched or whatever? You got a question on it, or you want to shine a light on something?
No, sir, not right now.
Okay, play this right here.
Vicki Dillard here on African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in and giving the video a big thumbs up and sharing the broadcast. Family, now we have come to love Oprah Winfrey over the years because of what she did in terms of the talk show world, beating out.
This is a prime example of what I'm talking about right here. She's a billionaire times 2. But look what they got to do.
The Donna Hughes of the world and so forth and so on with her impact and influence, right? Well, what was happening many times blatantly, but also subtly, subliminally, was how she was using her platform for decades to perpetuate anti-Black stereotypes, particularly anti-Black stereotypes. Some of you may or may not know that
So who got her doing that? And who got that kind of control over her? And she got all this money, but somebody making her do this.
Was a decade after our dear beloved brother Michael Jackson passed, she went against the wishes of his family and his team and interviewed those considered to be discredited individuals who won no case in court against Michael Jackson. Of course, he prevailed, even through trial. But yet she went against what Black society said, and she actually even acknowledged the fact that she was going to be accused of taking down the Black man by interviewing Michael Jackson's accusers who failed in court, and Michael Jackson won victoriously, to where no court, state or federally, found that he was doing anything inappropriately with children and so forth and so on, right? But yet she interviews his quote-unquote accusers. Well, in addition to that and a whole lot of other stuff that she did over the years, watch this, while supporting the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. One of the most notorious, incredibly alleged sexual assaulters, and he's been obviously convicted of interrelated crimes. She kept that on the low while she used her platform against her own people.
So let's look at this right quick, because I'm going to shine light on this. So they didn't put these people in a light to where us as Israelites, just, the regular, normal Israelites, that work on 9 to 5s and all that. So take it back to Moses and Aaron. when they was in Egypt, and Yahweh brought Moses and Aaron. So the people they are at Moses and Aaron, but Moses and Aaron righteous. So what Esau did, he bring these clowns, but they unrighteous. We looking at them with as our leaders, but they wicked as hell. Like I said, look at the ones that's in Chicago. They didn't jump just like that. They jump on the side of the immigrants. And with the Israelites, the people that's right there, they put them in the office. They ain't trying to hear nothing they say. So where the hell is coming from? The education. That's what the Most High is talking about. You got right knowledge, and then you don't have right knowledge. Wicked ass knowledge. It's a difference when if you're thinking like a Hebrew Israelite and you embrace that. But if you don't have no clue of what's going on, who you are, that's what that does to you.
This resurfaced clip, watch this as this white woman calls in to the show, and I want you to pay attention to how Oprah responds.
The gentleman with the hair would sit next to me, the way he's dressed. No, you. I would grab my purse and probably move to another seat. It's because of his looks. It's scary.
That's because it's out of a culture. Well, that's interesting. Clarify, madam, what you're saying. What does the word scary mean?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
Well, now would be a very good time to figure it out. What does the word scary mean? That is my question.
Well, you would frighten me. So
I understand that. What does the word scary mean? Or, same question, why would I frighten you? I haven't been in a fight since I was in 8th grade.
Well, you're probably not normally dressed up in a suit. You just look like you're a tough guy.
If she went to Jamaica, she'd be frightened all the time. Well, madam, let me then answer the question.
So what is it? Is it because of the way he's dressed, the color of his skin, or his hair? Is it his hair?
Yes, yes. And I'm sure he's not always dressed in a suit.
So does that mean you're frightened of all men who are not dressed in suits?
No. It's just the garb, I think, that would scare me.
Well, this is interesting, madam. Let me then advance this point. I speak of the old racism, which was Dr. Martin Luther King. I then speak of the new racism. One of the things you have to understand about racists or about yourself is racists are inherently intellectual cowards. They won't come out and say, I hate niggers because I hate niggers. Story over. What they will do is take pseudo-facts. They will take facts that are not true and use that as the intellectual pyramid to come to a conclusion that is inaccurate. If you actually want to talk about the statistics, if you are afraid of me on that bus, I don't ride on buses, because you think I'm going to murder you, there is no statistical basis for that. You are more likely to be murdered by your husband, by your son, by your brother. If you are afraid of me sitting next to you on that bus that I don't ride on, because you are afraid that I'm going to rape you, statistically, your boyfriend, your husband, is more probably going to be the rapist. So I'm saying you are the manifestation of the new racism, and you have used the same pseudo-intellectual statistics to construct a racist position.
Thank you, caller. I'm sure you didn't know you did all that with one phone call.
So look at that. I mean, look at how highly intelligent his brother is. These are the people that they was killing and lynching, throwing over the slave ship. And then now you got these clowns in Chicago. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, did you all see that? This is why we call her Oprah Winfrey, and a homegirl, Kale King. She was very dismissive of this intellectual black man's points. She gave no true credence to it. Though he spoke very eloquently and intelligently, but as it's been said about her, Oprah is really and has always been the virtual white woman's homegirl.
Madam, let me then answer the question.
So what is it? Is it because of the way he's dressed, the color of his skin, or his hair? Is it his hair?
Yes, yes. And I'm sure he's not always dressed in a suit.
So does that mean you're frightened of all men who are not dressed in suits?
No. It's just the garb, I think, that would scare me.
Well, this is interesting, madam. Let me then advance this point. I speak of the old racism, which was pre-Dr. Dr. Martin Luther King. I then speak of the new racism.
This was her base that helped to skyrocket her on the platform, on her platforms, her television platforms. And so, of course, she doesn't care if she does it on the back of her own people and if she offends us. Those days are over. And thank God for the Vicky Show and platforms like African Diaspora News Channel, who refuses to perpetuate and disrespect our own. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it below. My name is Vicky Diller. Be sure to check out my.
Okay, so when you this was back maybe 20 years ago or so. This is what perpetuated the Me Too movement, everything that we see now, with everybody out of control. Look who they're using to do it. This is what perpetuated it. It was stuff like this, like I said, subliminal, that nobody paying no attention to. Nobody's reflecting on it at night. It's how we got where we at. Any comments?
I'm glad you placed that put that out there, because yes, there's so many interviews that she had with the guests on her show that she did that to, put them on for show.
Right. It's not her. Somebody showed her how to do that. Just like
right.
With the guy, what his name? I can't think. Clyde Davis. What he did to Whitney Houston.
Yes, sir.
These people came up in normal, just like we did, normal houses. Where they get this from? They showed them. They showed them that that was introduced to them. Like I said, look at R. Kelly. How you get to where you trafficking little kids and raping little girls and all this stuff, man? Come on, that's all they introduced. And so like I was saying, you got to look at the part where we looking at them, their skin color, and we looking at them as Moses or Aaron. But they ain't Moses and Aaron. Because they diabolical. These folks here, they brainwash them and condition them to do the things they be doing. That's why we going round and round in circles. That's how I got to the point. That's how I got to the point where we just, for the longest, it's a process to throw JC away. He had about 100 hooks in my back and in my front, but you get to a point where you got to throw him away when you understand where he came from and who devised him. Yeah.
Yes, sir. They continue to try to set the stage.
Right. It's a hard process, but you gotta stay with it. You gotta because you're not gonna fully see the light as long as you say they're trying to incorporate him in anything that's got to do with the scriptures. That's the block. That's the roadblock. Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna go into the discussion, which is the book of Micah, and why was it taken out of the 1908 King James slave Bible. So we had this conversation before. Everybody familiar with a slave Bible, right? They know what a slave Bible is?
I've heard of it when they showed it on television, but no, sir, I'm not into exactly what it was, or I have seen one.
So this was the way that they, just like the brother that was just talking. That's who we are. That's who we are. We can see that by what was going on the continent of Africa when we came in contact with these people. We was highly intelligent, right? They had our minds wasn't, like he said, they put a yoke of iron around us and destroyed our minds. Then they took the yoke of iron off. We didn't have the minds that we have today, docile and not rightly dividing stuff and thinking things out. So these people, when they brought us over here, they took parts out of the scriptures. They knew the scriptures was connected to us. You know, just like I told you about the ram. Scriptures was connected to us. We the Israelites. So they took things out of the Bible that they knew was going to trigger our memories and trigger our DNA. Like wasn't no Jeremiah in the slave Bible. It's hard to believe, but it wasn't no Jeremiah. It wasn't no I think Deuteronomy. Wasn't no Deuteronomy. All those books that when you read them, it's gonna point toward us. So they took all those books out. They got, you know, you can purchase a slave Bible, see it for yourself. But yeah, they had all those different things out there pertaining to that identified the nation of Israel by the verses and the precepts. They took all that stuff out. And so what we're dealing with today is they took the book of Micah out. So like I was saying before, you got to go back and look at that back when you was in the church, and even now that you're outside the church, and then you come across a preacher or a pastor or whatever, and they say with fervor and zeal that all you need is these 66 books. That's all you need is these 66 books. Well, they done flipped and dipped the 66 books. When our forefathers was in the plantation, they ain't know nothing about no Micah. Now they done put Micah back in the book. Now we reading it, we dealing with Micah. So how in the hell is these 66 books all we need when they flipping and dipping the books all over the place? And they even brought the King James, the New Testament, stuck it to our scriptures. And then, but you stand up with all this so-called zeal and saying that, you know, the New Testament is good and that these 66 books was never tampered with. The Most High watched over them when it's the furthest from the truth. Okay? So that's what a slave Bible is. They had all these scriptures that we read now, that we using now to connect it, you know, to connect the dots to who our identity and who the real Israelites are. They wasn't there. They wasn't, you know, when they had you watching slave movies and they showing you the preachers that was reading the Bible, they had the black men they had reading to the black folks in the woods. They didn't have all these, they didn't have Jeremiah and Deuteronomy and books like that, Leviticus. It wasn't there. So, and they didn't have Micah in there. So, but this, what's going on with these people here is they're exposing the fact that why Micah wasn't in there. And this wasn't long ago. It's 1908. Okay. So we thinking that Micah been there all the time, but it was 1908. It was taken out. Okay, let me get it.
Wanted the book of Micah to never come across our eyes, nor to be regurgitated from our lips. I noticed somebody say, Tim, you're just talking again. You always got something to say, but you have no backup. So let's go ahead and, if you can see my screen here, and my screen here, I'll let you see what this is. This is the Unholy Slave Bible. Let me move my prop off from under there. Since we're going through discussion, I can show it.
This is a book that you can purchase, the Unholy Slave Bible.
That's right. I had it sent with my prop. This is called the Unholy Slave Bible. Let me move around the little thing I got in here. It's by David Charles Mills. See that? You see my little cursor moving too? Or does it look okay? Okay, yeah, David Charles Mills. Now, let me tell you something about this. This was given to me by an institution. I told them what I needed it for. They did not. They have not fully shown me how to use it. Neither have they made me pay for it. I am willing to pay for it, but the man said try it out. But I don't think he meant try it out forever. But COVID came, and you're familiar. You're my wife. Did I call him many times? Damn. David Charles Mills, The Unholy Slave Bible. If you were to look this up on YouTube, you can see a video about it. Now, the only reason I have my prop on it, this is important to our class. Very important, because it's not just the book of Micah that we're going to talk about, but I want us to be able to understand that there's some information given here. I'm not going to give it all, but this piece of information, let's say if you were, I hate when this, there it goes. Sometimes my little thing to come down and say screen share and come on my book. Okay, so sometimes when I do things like this, it has information more than I want to give. So I just want to give you just a little bit. This book, it'll do a little, remember I told you all, he did not fully show me how to use it, okay? So if I do a little bit of work, right here, I'm telling it to give me focus. Focus log. There we go. This book, it was published in 1908 it was printed by Law and Gilbert. That's all I really want to tell you. Law and Gilbert. You can find a free copy online. Law and Gilbert. I own it in Kindle. Okay? But this one, by the man that did it, it was so important to me to have it that I wanted you all to have it. Now, yes? What you said to me, Gary? Talk to me. Right. Yes. Are you on conference or Zoom? What are you listening to me on? How do you hear me? Are you hearing me from the conference line or from the Zoom? Because I'm plugged in. My Zoom is in the microphone on the computer. That's hooked up. If you're listening to me on the okay, so that's the phone issue. That's what I needed to know. So I'm gonna move that closer to me. Is this better? Okay, so I put the microphone on the telephone closer to me because it was further away. It's on speaker. It's on speaker, but when they made them where you can't put a headphone in it, that did. But other than that, that was his issue. Thank you for interrupting me and letting me know that that was important for me. But why you laugh? Because I said interrupting. Some interruptions are good. Okay. So this is what this book was for. Don't want this. It's not focusing well. I understand. Like I said, I was willing to not only pay for it, but pay for the instructions. But I'll pull this down. I guarantee you, I pull it down, you're going to see it better. I know how to play with it. All right, it says, so the British slave trade industry had three phases: slave raiding, trading, slave breaking, making, and slave labor slavery. Unholy, that's the name of this book, was planned, published, and used as a tool in the slave breaking making process. What famed historian Dr. John Hope Franklin called sweetening the island. Sweetening, okay, I thought it was sweetening. I own his book over here. All right. I don't want to go all the way through, but I want you to understand it had an impact on faith, ethics, images, that's what we get white Jesus, values, principles of grace, religion, history, law, public policy, psychology, sociology, and more. That's what that Bible was made for. What does this Bible consist of? This is a comparative table of what we use as King James version of the Bible. It has 50 chapters. In the Unholy Bible, it only has these. What did I say? Okay, Genesis. In Exodus has 40 chapters. In the Unholy Bible, they only allow them to have 2 chapters. Chapter 19 and 20. You don't get to hear what the Most High does to Pharaoh, to all of the gods that we celebrate and that we have affinity to on our holy days. That many of them came from Egypt, went through Babylon, Persia, Greek, Romans, and now American, like Nick worshiping the sun, but I won't go through all of that. In Deuteronomy, look at Deuteronomy, 34 chapters. It only has 2, 4, 6, 8 chapters of Deuteronomy in it. First Samuel, I'm not going to go through all that because I want to get down to what I want you to see as the nitty and the gritty. Let me move this out of my face. Now, I want you to see the books that are omitted. Slide this over. I'm working with it, you all. Give me a minute. There we go. The book that we are doing right now is called Micah. That's one of the omitted books in the Bible. Why is this book omitted? We just covered it. The book of Leviticus, we've taught that book. It is omitted from the slave Bible. In other words, we want to control their culture. We want to control their perception of who we are in the relationship that we have with one another. We want to control how they think. We want to control their laws. We want to control their ethics. We want to control how they view us as masters. That's seasoning the slave, according to what we have by Dr. John Hope Franklin. The book of Joshua, what the Most High God showed, I will give my people at times power to conquer and to do conquest. The book of Judges, Ruth.
Yeah, now, so I showed you how, this is crazy, but I showed you how Joshua answered. Joshua fulfilled Genesis chapter 15. Joshua and Moses and Caleb, they the ones, especially Joshua, they killed the time of the Amorites. He said was not yet filled. Joshua, Moses killed the Amorites, brought the Amorites to the end. This is one of the books that's not in there. So the ideology that we're dealing with now, it just come on the scene. Just they didn't have Leviticus, Numbers, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 2 Samuel, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nahum, Micah, Zephaniah, Haggai. None of these was in the Bible. Imagine that. Imagine that. So just as soon as they gave us these books, look where we at. We waking up. Come on.
Annual. If I look on here and find one book I haven't taught, I need to teach it. Even the book of the Revelation is not taught. It wasn't taught. The book of Jude, they created a 2-tier caste system of Christianity. The book of Amos, I can imagine Amos has never been taught. Obadiah, when you talk about the Edomites, Herod was an Edomite. They mixed with the people that were the original Israelites, and they continued until they got to be in charge over that Israel, and people called them Jews, and they were not.
Right.
But Micah, why was the book Micah not included? Here's my question. If you've been going to church 15 to 20 years and these books have not been taught, then what is that saying? Haven't you in effect been taught the Unholy Slave Bible? If you listen to Andy Stanley and different ones say you really need to divorce yourself or detach yourself from the Oldest Testament, isn't that another way of saying the same thing? If you've been told that the Old Testament was for them back then, and not for us at all. Isn't that still the same thing that the British, and now they got a man that's a king, they call him Charles, like they might even get close to having that Habsburg syndrome that they had? Isn't it possible that your church, your pastor, and worse than that, worse than your church and your pastor, you have determined, I don't want to know what the Most High God has to say. What I'm interested in is having a church feeling, a song, a dance, a rap, and a dinner. Well, with that being said, we can go and now go into what we have been dealing with before. We have been dealing with the book of Micah. In the book of Micah, I have it open to chapter 1. And now I want the people that have been with us this time throughout it to have what they'd like to say about it. I'm prepared just in case, but I'd like to know, based on the new information I've given you, because you know there was a reason. Normally when we teach a book, we look for like, okay, what's going to be our next book? And I start asking you all, because we only have about 7 we haven't covered. And you said, are you planning on going over it again? Are you planning on, you know, and the odds are I wasn't, but you asked. And I said, he's asking for a reason. Can you get, it was that good. Mm-hmm. Gary, can you hear the lovely Andrina? I'm gonna bring her closer to my world. I'm moving the and if nothing else, you can just pick up the phone. It won't bite you. Yeah, the Zoom, this easy. I can turn that. That's a power mic. Now you should be able to hear yourself on the Zoom as well. Do I need to move something, or you got the power? I don't want you lifting too heavy stuff now. I'm looking at you. If I see any strain, there you go. And net check to see if he can hear you well. Thank you for coming closer to me. I can reach over there and touch. I can go here and touch you there. Go ahead.
Okay, so it was that relevant. Mm-hmm. And that was you just brought it home now. Is that with the slave Bible?
The Lord gave me that this morning.
It was that good, that relevant. It was, it's so appropriate for the time. Mm-hmm. To see what's actually happening with us today, with leadership, you know, government, what we call government, the United States government, and leadership, what we call leadership, and people who are supposed to be leaders of our people, you know, spokesmen for us, representatives of us. Yes. It was good, and that's why it's like, can we kind of go back over that, because I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, because next year is an election year. Am I right?
16, 22, 23, they'll be 24, right? Yeah.
So we need to keep this in mind, because things just don't happen to us. Like, there are people sit on their beds and they decide that these things will happen. And we get to see that in the book of Micah. We get to see that these things are planned. And, you know, we call certain things, the people have called it pandemic. Mm-hmm. Certain things are planned, and we need to get focused on knowing that the hidden hand is not so hidden if you just look for it, if you care enough, if you have the wisdom and the understanding that comes from the scripture, the hand is not hidden. You can see it. And so we make choices based on that. We make choices based on, and we're all in churches. We go to church, and if we don't go to church, we listen to somebody online. But none of these things are brought to the forefront. This kind of wisdom and this kind of understanding that comes from the scriptures. And I can see why they would feel like, don't teach these people that. We cannot teach them this because you will find fault. You'll find fault in the way that we govern. We don't want you to do that.
That's the sad thing when you notice that often we don't find in the fault in the ways that we are governed or in the way that we govern when we get a modicum of authority.
Right. Well, that's why you know, we just brought that up. I'm thinking, we said, are you teaching from the slave Bible? Like, are you in your Christian church? And you relegated some portions of scripture to be obsolete, and they are of none effect. That you are actually, this is the worst part, you are actually agreeing with the oppressors of your ancestors. You are agreeing that yes, they were right on this.
They were. That's what we say.
They were right not to teach us any of this. Don't teach us, Micah. They were so right. We're so.
And I can make it known today that I have Google Screen set up so that if anybody wanted to make a comment or say something, that I can actually see it and answer it. But go ahead, Fresh.
So, looking, we start seeing what oppressors look like. I mean, the full description of what oppression is, and you don't understand it. If we got this, hey, the Most High said, I'll spell it out for you. They covet your fields and they take them. It's just that, yes, that's what they did.
They did.
So, it's a complete description of what oppression is, and I can see why they don't teach them.
What was it in this book that stuck out to you in so much, in such a way that in going through it, it's if I cannot forget it? Because we've gone through a lot of books together, you and I, probably 2,000 classes or more. And every now and then, one of the books would jump out like that. Because my goal is I want to get back to Deuteronomy, but it's not time yet. Deuteronomy and Leviticus and Numbers, because that's the foundation of what the Messiah teaches about. But go ahead, Christian.
It is irrelevant. It is what we see now. It's the Most High is causing us to remember. And this is memory. Like, we need to make this something, we call a muscle memory. We need to know this, like we breathe, like, we use our hands and feet, sometimes without even thinking about it. We need to remember. And he's causing us to remember these things. And causing us, and it's and people
this is what I mean by thinking like a Hebrew.
Understand this. They understand that he's causing us to remember. And we're going back and saying, look, all that happened and that happened. And it is historical. And we need to remember it for a particular purpose. Because I don't think this is the end of oppression. I think they want to recycle it. I think they want to have a revolution of it. and that we've had too much freedom that they want to take back. They've shown us that. So what's wrong?
I'm saying that I don't see them. Oh, it's turned that way. I wonder why the microphone went on. But you know what? That's what happened after the so-called freedom of the Emancipation Proclamation. There was no freedom given by it because the South had already seceded from the North. Therefore, Abraham Lincoln, when he made that Emancipation Proclamation, when he did that, the South wasn't under the North. Now they had been defeated, but they had seceded that. When they're going to have to come back together and be reconstituted in order to reconstruct the Union. Okay? So he didn't free anybody in the South, and he didn't go out his way to free anybody in the North. So once that was done, that's why circular number 3591 had to be instituted. Circular 3591 is because they had said, okay, we're not going to use the term slavery. We're going to use the word indebtedness and forced servitude. What do you mean, Tim? 13th Amendment. Slavery nor, how does it go? Slavery. It's always be in my mind. 13th Amendment, knowing, I know what's going on. I'm doing it because what was happening is I was doing two things at the same time. Now, slavery nor involuntary servitude will be allowed in the United States, nor any of this jurisdiction except for the conviction of a person duly convicted of a crime. But I'll pull it up. I don't like forgetting important things like that. 13th Amendment. So I got the 13th Amendment. And there it is. Let's share that screen. New share. Here. There and share. 13th Amendment to the Constitution provides neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except for punishment for a crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. What that means is the moment they made vagrancy laws, the moment that they made laws that prohibited in the construct of their race that Black people were doing something wrong. The reason that I'm saying this is because we call it Jim Crow laws. But Jim Crow was actually a white man in blackface doing a dance. You can see it on YouTube. And they were mocking us like little crows. They call it the Jim Crow dance. But that got to be the name of a comedy, a minstrel show, got to be the name of what was one of the most atrocious things that happened to us. So they made those laws that if you're working on a plantation being whipped, but you can find some kind of way to work for somebody else to make a little extra money. If you're going somewhere without permission, you can be locked up. Now you're not guilty of a crime yet, but you're locked up, so you are de facto guilty. So now we can say that we're going to give you a year and a half for being locked up. Now there's a book that's called Georgia, Nigger, Georgia Nigger. I just say nigger, Nigor, okay? That book goes through and it explains it from the vantage point of a white man that wanted to know what was going about in Georgia. And so what you would do is they give you a year and a half for breaking one of those laws. But they say, if you go ahead and confess, if you go ahead and plead, we'll bargain with you instead of you having to pay a year and a half, we'll only let you do a month and a half. The moment you say yes, you're duly convicted of a crime. And so when you see these kind of things going on, and we think it doesn't still happen today.
That's part of it. They didn't say a felony. They didn't say a misdemeanor. It's just a crime. So if you have a traffic ticket and you go to court and you pay them, you're guilty. They have you already convicted of a crime. You're a slave. It doesn't matter if you jaywalk and they give you a ticket and you have to pay it. You are still convicted of a crime. They didn't say, well, you know, it has to be a felony. Felony, it doesn't know any crime. Any crime. And now we make your speech a crime.
Yes.
We'll make a law that say if you say certain things, you are a criminal, which means that you are a slave now.
We can work you. We can sell your labor. We can separate you from your family. We can take your rights. Any rights that you've eventually gotten, they can be taken from you. Go ahead, Precious.
Oh.
Okay. Anybody got any comments so far? No comments? Okay.
That's okay. Long as she live and I'm good. All right.
Can you hear now? Can you hear us?
I can hear.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do, I want you to go back to the screen. I want us to see some things, and I want you all to stop me whenever when I provoke some memories. Okay, so in the middle passage,
What did you say? Stop you with memory?
If I say something and it jogs a memory of something that we talked about, I want you to bring up whatever it is. Can you hear me, Gary? Because I can turn it around.
Yes, I hear you.
Do you hear me better now?
I mean, you're good and clear.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I want us to look at Micah from the vantage point of the beginning of it. And I have listed here in my middle panel, judgment and trial. My thoughts when I was going through the book of Micah is that the Most High is trying this nation. Now, the worst thing about the book of Micah is this is us doing it to ourselves. This is not white people doing this. This is us doing it to ourselves. These are people that know better doing it to people anyway. And we have taken the Most High for granted. And by having taken him for granted, we're going to override his rule and authority for some reason. So my thing is that if this is what we've done to each other, which is destruction, what would we do to each other if we took their legal system, their what they call justice system, their educational system, and we learn it and we mimic it and then put us in charge?
Yeah.
We're still going to be in the same place, even worse. There has to be an uprooting of wickedness from our hearts and in our minds, and a return back to the Most High to do things the way He wants it done, so that not only will those that are of other nations that have done things us will be judged, but we also will be judged again if we fall back into that. We must go back to what we were set aside to do. The gift and the calling of God, according to Romans chapter 9, of without repentance. The gift and calling of God was not just to save. It was to bring a people to be the light of the world. It was for people to come in to possess the gates of their enemies so that people would know the Most High God.
Okay. So if you want to check all that out, this is about 2 hours. Is what's revealed in the book of Micah, and why was it taken from 1908 King James Saved by? You want to put that on your watch list to watch it. Check it out. Anybody have any comments on what they heard? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, I got one more time to play before I close out. This is I was talking about this last night. I tried to backtrack on everything I say. This is about the locusts. It's I'm not gonna be able to see it, though I lost it when I had to reboot.
Holiest city in Islam has been swarmed by a catastrophic plague of locusts during the holy month of Ramadan. But is this just a freak of nature or a divine intervention?
Something remarkable happened in the just concluded fast of Muslims at Mecca. Many people consider it a prophetic sign, while others think it's a miracle. I'm going to show you all the videos.
So, like I was saying, how in the hell this many locusts a miracle? The judgment. Okay? What a miracle got to do with it?
Videos associated with this event. Locusts invaded Mecca, the most holiest site in Islam. This happened at the end of their holiest month, Ramadan. In this video, you can see people reacting to the inconvenience of the insect on people. It's all over the floor. It's not a good sight to behold. It is all over the place. They are moving in groups, in numbers. So what is really going on here? This is an infestation. But why here? Why Mecca? Why just after the fast? If you don't know, Ramadan is a month of fasting and prayer and reflection for the community of Muslims around the world. They abstain from eating, drinking, smoking, or anything that's impure or excessive from dawn until sunset. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and Mecca is the most holiest site in Islam because Muhammad, the founder of Islam, was born in Mecca. And it is toward this religious center that Muslims turn 5 times daily in prayer. It is expected that all devoted and able Muslims attempt a Hajj, pilgrimage, to Mecca at least once in their lifetime. Also, the great mosque of Mecca, known as the Masjid al-Haram, is home to the Kaaba. The Kaaba, the black cube, is the most sacred site in Islam, known as the sacred Beit Allah, house of God. It is located at the heart of the sacred mosque, Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The Kaaba is believed by Muslims to have been built by Abraham and Ishmael. It is one of Islam's holiest sites and the direction of prayer for all Muslims. Every year during the Ramadan season, many people come to celebrate and partake in the fast. So, why would locusts invade such a holy site? It is a question in the heart of many. This is because in Islam, in Christianity, Judaism, and Buddhism, locust infestation is considered a sign of judgment or punishment. The Bible and the Quran, the holy books of 2 of the most followed religions on earth, have described and referred to locusts as menacing and strong creatures that bring misery to those facing its wrath. So is this a sign of punishment or judgment in Mecca? Muslims online believe it is a miracle. What do you think this is, a miracle or a sign of punishment? In the Quran, verse 133 of chapter 7 says, "So we let loose upon them the flood and the locusts and the lice and the frogs and blood, all explicit signs, but they were too arrogant. They were a sinful people." Here the Quran says it's a plague. First, it talks about the flood. Videos of flooding in Mecca have been circulating the internet, which you can see here. Torrential rain accompanied by hailstorms and flash flood in Mecca. And now low-cost? Yet they say it is a miracle? But the Quran says it is not a miracle. It even says the people were arrogant and sinful. When God was dealing with Pharaoh, he told him in the book of Exodus, chapter 10, verse 4, "If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow." You already know the story of how Pharaoh refused to let the children of Israel go. And one of the punishments God brought on Egypt was an invasion of locusts. Exodus chapter 10, verse 12 says, "And the Lord said to Moses, 'Stretch out your hand over Egypt, so that locusts swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail.'" In the Bible, the book of Nahum, chapter 3, verse 15 says, "There the fire will consume you, the sword will cut you down, they will devour you like a swarm of locusts. Multiply like grasshoppers, multiply like locusts." The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 38 says, "You will sow much seed in the field, but you will harvest little, because locusts will devour it." This, in fact, establishes that locusts have been known to wreak havoc for a very long time. The visitation of locusts is not something to celebrate or a miracle. It should be a time of reflection. It is a warning that something is wrong. Now, this isn't the first time that Mecca has been infected with some type of bug. Just a couple of years ago, in 2019, a locust actually infested the site. Here's a video from January 14th, 2019 that says, "A swarm of what appears to be locusts descend in a flurry on the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The flood is a warning, and the locust is also a warning. Even the Quran says that. And the fact the flood happened while the pilgrim was ongoing and at the end of the fast locust invaded these places really calls for a sober reflection that something is wrong somewhere.
Okay, so this is what I mean right here about nut buckets. So you had a time period that you was able to get away with that, but now the rubber that met the road. It's locusts that infested the whole place. We know what locusts is. So let's look at it. They gave us JC, same people that gave us Islam. The Gentiles and the Esau Catholic Church gave us these books. And it's God come with each book. You got Allah with Islam, and you got JC with the New Testament. The Lord of Hosts is in the Old Testament, in Tanakh. So we're trying to figure out who coming back, right? Well, the God that's in the Old Testament says he changed not. So he brought locusts in Egypt. So who is this bringing locusts now? It ain't JC. It ain't Allah. They can't wield that kind of power. The Lord of Hosts that's in the Old Testament. He's same then and he's same now. He's bringing locusts. And these nut buckets can't get there. They're still in denial. It ain't nothing about, like the man said, this is the holy week of Ramadan, the holy place. It's supposed to be a holy place, right? But there's locusts everywhere. Everybody got on there and brought their families and got on white and all that, and there's locusts everywhere. They can't move. So go back to the story, the guy that showed up in Egypt. He said that the locusts came and the frogs came and drove the Israelites back up in their houses. Ain't nothing good about that. But they still trying to make it good. Like he said, now it's a miracle. This is what I mean right here about nut buckets. You gotta give them 50 feet. Because everything you done said, it ain't adding up. Truth coming out now, and you don't even have enough countenance or discernment to make the adjustment. Ain't there something? Okay. He bring floods, bring locusts. That's the God in the Old Testament. Even in the New Testament, you don't see JC bringing no locusts nowhere. You don't see Allah bringing no locusts, bringing no flood. Okay, that's all. Like I say, you can train a baboon to see that. Okay. So, with that being said, anybody got any comments before we go? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, nobody have no comments? Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, and sorry about the mishap. So I'll see everybody in the morning at 10 o'clock for our morning Shabbat class. Shalom, shalom, and another shalom.
Shalom.